Hi, it's Sue. Thanks for joining me for today's Bible reading for April 5th. And I'm reading 2 Samuel 1 through 3, beginning of a new chapter. And I will link the Bible Project overview of 2 Samuel in the description in case you want to look at that. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had stayed 2 days in Ziklag, on the third day, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul, with his clothes torn and earth on his head. When he came to David, he fell to the earth and showed respect. David said to him, "Where do you come from?" He said to him, "I have escaped of the camp of Israel." David said to him, "How did it go? Please tell me." He answered, "The people have fled from the battle, and many of the people also have fallen and are dead. Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead also." David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead?" The young man who told him said, "As I happened by chance on Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul was leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen followed close behind him. When he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me. I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' He said to me, 'Please stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has taken hold of me, because my life lingers in me.' So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he had fallen. I took the crown that was on his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I brought them here to my lord." Then David took hold on his clothes and tore them, and all the men who were with him did likewise. They mourned, wept, and fasted until evening for Saul, and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of Yahweh, and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. David said to the young man who told him, "Where are you from?" He answered, "I am the son of a foreigner, an Amalekite." David said to him, "Why were you not afraid to stretch out your hand to destroy Yahweh's anointed?" David called one of the young men and said, "Go near and cut him down." He struck him so that he died. David said to him, "Your blood be on your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, 'I have slain Yahweh's anointed.'" David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. And he commanded them to teach the children of Judah the song of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. So there's the extra biblical book of Jasher that I've yet to read, but I want to. Verse 19. "Your glory, Israel, was slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Don't tell it in Gath. Don't publish it in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain on you, and no fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled and cast away. The shield of Saul was not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, Jonathan's bow didn't turn back. Saul's sword didn't return empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives. In their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions." Let me stop for a second and share this thought that's occurring to me as I read. The Word of God is so beautiful. It's a deep well, and there's so much that we can get out of it. It's depicted as a mirror where we see ourselves, but we also see in its reflection so many principles of life and aspects of human behavior. And here with David, I see this very godlike characteristic and virtue where he sees Saul and Jonathan, but speaking specifically of Saul, he sees his value and his beauty and his, I guess, potential through God's eyes. He loves him in spite of all his downfall, in spite of his sin. He sees who God designed Saul to be. And that's a type of love, unconditional love and long suffering that God has toward us, the grace he has toward us, that, he created us. What does the Bible say? Fearfully and wonderfully. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And, it's like a parent looking at a child who we have this unconditional love for our children, regardless of what they do. And, God's love toward the most wicked behavior, the person who has the most wicked behavior. You think of Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, both got saved before they died. These vicious murderers, demonized murderers, both got saved and set free before they died, and they're most likely with Jesus now. So, they both had a confession of faith. They both repented. And so here you see God's everlasting love and long suffering toward people, even when they choose not to walk in his divine design for their life. And that's how David saw Saul. It's so beautiful that he wrote this song. What did he call it? It was a lament. And it says, the Song of the Bow, the Song of the Bow, and it's recorded in the book of Jasher. So I'm going to make a note of that. And when I do get around to reading the book of Jasher, I'm going to look for that Song of the Bow that I assume here that David wrote it. But anyway, as you're reading through here, let me back up to that one part where he talked about so lovingly about Saul. It says, there the shield of the mighty was defiled and cast away. The shield of Saul was not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, Jonathan's bow didn't turn back. Saul's sword didn't return empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives. In their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. The daughters of Israel weep over Saul, who clothed you delicately in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your clothing. How the mighty have fallen in the middle of the battle. Jonathan was slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You have been very pleasant to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen. The weapons of war have perished. I like too how he describes people, these warriors, as weapons of war. Chapter 2, verse 1. After this, David inquired of Yahweh, saying, shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? Yahweh said to him, go up. David said, where shall I go? He said, to Hebron. So David went up there with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. David brought up his men who were with him, every man with his household. They lived in the cities of Hebron. The men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. They told David the men of Jabesh-Gilead were those who buried Saul. David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh-Gilead and said to them, blessed are you by Yahweh, that you have shown this kindness to your Lord, even to Saul, and have buried him. Remember, they called them valiant men because they went into the camp where the Philistines had hung Saul's body on the wall, and the other men, his sons. And they actually bravely went in there and yanked him down and took him and burned their bodies and buried their bones. So David's saying, blessed are you by Yahweh, because you have shown kindness to your Lord, even to Saul, and have buried him. Now may Yahweh show loving kindness and truth to you. I also will reward you for this kindness, because you have done this thing. Now therefore let your hands be strong and be valiant. So Saul your Lord is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. Now Abner the son of Ner, captain of Saul's army, had taken Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Abner the son of Ner and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. Joab the son of Jeruah and David's servants went out to meet them at the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. Abner said to Joab, please let the young man arise and play before us. Joab said, let them arise. Then they arose and went over by number 12 for Benjamin and for Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and 12 of David's servants. They each caught his opponent by the head and thrust his sword into his fellow's side, so they fell down together. Therefore the place in Gibeon was called Helkath Hazarim. The battle was very severe that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before David's servants. The 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild gazelle. Asahel pursued Abner, and in going, he didn't turn to the right or to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, is that you, Asahel? He said, it is. Abner said to him, turn aside to your right hand or your left, and grab one of the young men and take his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. Abner said again, turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I look Joab your brother in the face? However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore Abner, with the back end of a spear, struck him in the body so that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. As many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still, but Joab and Abishai pursued Abner. The sun went down when they had come to the hill of Ammah, that lies before Gath by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. The children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one band and stood on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, shall the sword devour forever? Don't you know that it will be a bitterness in the latter end? How long will it be then before you ask the people to return from following their brothers? Joab said, as God lives, if you have not spoken, surely then in the morning the people would have gone away, and not each followed his brother. So Joab blew the trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued Israel no more, and they fought no more. Abner and his men went all that night through the Arabah, and they passed over the Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and came to Mahanaim. Joab returned from following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, 19 men of David's and Asahel were missing. But David's servants had struck Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. They took up Asahel and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was in Bethlehem. Joab and his men went all night, and the day broke on them at Hebron. Chapter 3. Now there was a long war between Saul's house and David's house. David grew stronger and stronger, but Saul's house grew weaker and weaker. Sons were born to David in Hebron. His first was Amnon of Ahinoam the Jezreelite, and his second, Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, and the fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith, and the fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth, Ithream of Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. While there was war between Saul's house and David's house, Abner made himself strong in Saul's house. Now Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, why have you gone into my father's concubine? Now let me stop. There's a story that's going to come up having to do with David's son Amnon and Absalom. And now I talked about it before. I don't know if I'll go over it through this reading, but I talked about it before. I think it was in my Holman Christian Standard Bible read through. I'm not sure. If I find the link, I'll post it in the description. It's a really interesting scenario that the Holy Spirit showed me when we were reading through last time. So if I can find it, I may not be able to. Okay, so it says, why have you gone into my father's concubine? Then Abner was very angry about Ishbosheth's words and said, am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah? Today I show kindness to Saul's house your father, to his brothers, and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hand of David. And yet you charge me today with a fault concerning this woman? God do so to Abner, and more also, if, as Yahweh has sworn to David, I don't do even so to him, to transfer the kingdom from Saul's house, and to set up David's throne over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. He could not answer Abner another word because he was afraid of him. Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, whose is the land? And saying, make your alliance with me, and behold, my hand will be with you to bring all Israel around to you. He said, good, I will make a treaty with you, but one thing I require of you. That is, you will not see my face unless you bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. Because that was his wife, right? And remember, Saul had given her to someone else in the interim when he was following David around trying to kill him. Okay, so here he's trying to get her back. So he said, that is, you will not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, deliver me my wife Michal, whom I was given to marry for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Paltiel, the son of Laish. Her husband went with her, weeping as he went, and followed her to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, go, return. And he returned. Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, in times past you sought for David to be a king over you. Now then, do it. For Yahweh has spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of their enemies. You know what? This also reminds me of modern day politics, because even though David was anointed, he made enemies. I mean, that Michael's husband probably had it in for him after that, don't you think? I mean, he feels like he was really wronged by him, kind of like Donald Trump. You know, people that talk about things that he did in business that they really didn't appreciate, and yet, you know, here God is using him. Um, it's just, you know, David did a lot of screwed up things, and other leaders, world leaders that God used and appointed and anointed, and they were far, far from perfect. So you can imagine the feelings of that husband. And that's not the no, that's not the only husband David dissed, right? Look at Bathsheba's husband. He had him killed. So here we are. Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, in times past you sought for David to be king over you, then do it. For Yahweh has spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of their enemies. Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin, and Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel and to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron or Hebron? I like Hebron. And 20 men went with him. David made Abner and the men who were with him a feast. Abner said to David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all that your soul desires. David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Behold, David's servants and Joab came from a raid and brought in great plunder with them, but Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the army who was with him had come, they told Joab, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he was sent away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, what have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away, and he is already gone? You know Abner the son of Ner. He came to deceive you, and to know you're going out and you're coming in, and to know all that you do. Now remember, Joab was a military commander. That's how he thought. That was his strategy, you know, his strategic way of thinking. So he's saying, you know, what did you do? You know, this is not good judgment for protecting us, not good military judgment. So when Joab came out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David didn't know it. When Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into the middle of the gate to speak with him quietly, and struck him there in the body, so that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. Afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before Yahweh forever, for the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it fall on the head of Joab and on all his father's house. Now Joab would be an interesting one to follow his entire story through the Bible. Somebody should write a book about that if they haven't yet. There's a novel by Francine Rivers on a couple of these guys. There's more than one, I think she did, on these certain characters, and it's fiction. So it's, you know, it's historical fiction. It's when she adds in the details, she adds them in the most, you know, realistic, logical, practical way. So you feel like you're right there living the story. It's amazing. All right. Anyway, this is still almost done with chapter 3. Let there not fail from the house of Joab one who has an issue, or who is a leper, or who leans on his staff, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner, because he had killed their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, tear your clothes and clothe yourselves with sackcloth and mourn in front of Abner. King David followed the bier, B.I.E.R. They buried Abner in Hebron. I guess that was like a funeral cart or procession or something. I'm going to have to look that up. B.I.E.R. So it says King David followed the bier. They buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at Abner's grave, and all the people wept. The king lamented for Abner and said, should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands weren't bound and your feet weren't put in fetters. As a man falls before the children of iniquity, so you fell. All the people wept again over him. All the people came to urge David to eat bread while it was yet day, but David swore, saying, God do so to me, and more also, if I taste bread or anything else until the sun goes down. All the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatever the king did pleased all the people. So all the people in all of Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to kill Abner the son of Ner. The king said to his servants, "Don't you know that there a prince and a great man has fallen today in Israel?" See, there he is honoring him again. These men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too hard for me. May Yahweh reward the evildoer according to his wickedness. That's the end of today's reading. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to check the description for the links, and there's also an email there if you'd like a free 1-year Bible. God bless you today.